Okay, so we go through our sort of ritual of starting rehearsal. But now is when things sort of break apart. The horn players go to concert arcs formation that looks like a concert band standing on the field. The drum line goes to either a completely different location on the field or stays within the center of these arcs, depending on the time, and has their own warm-up. The guard moves over to an end zone or the back of the field, or is in the rehearsal room, and continues with their kind of thing. So we immediately start the rehearsal in unison, but after 2 minutes have elapsed in the rehearsal, we're broken apart into subsectionals. And that probably, of a 90-minute rehearsal, that on an average takes at least 10 or 15 minutes of every rehearsal. I mean, we dedicate that much time when that's 10 or 15 valuable minutes of gluing together a couple more sets of drill that in our short prep is valuable time. But it's not more valuable than what we do in building the sound of the group. So this breaking apart in order to come back together is of critical importance. It's almost always built for the horn line on sound fundamentals and playing and tuning and developing sound. For the drum line, it's technique, physically warming up if you haven't already been warmed up, and a lot of times it's a few more minutes of learning a few more notes.
Tuning also.
And tuning also, absolutely. And for the guard, it's the continuation of all those same things as well.
Yes, definitely.
Include
fundamentals and technique.
Yep. So if we don't put a high priority on this, then I don't think we get what we're ultimately going to get. So I think that's universal to all bands out there. If it's not, that's probably something that you guys need to look at and kind of figure out how are we going to make this consistent fundamental approach a regular part of what we do. I think then before we get into any kind of physical learning drill, cleaning drill, full ensemble rehearsal, drums, horns, guard together, when time, and I think every band in the world would agree that when the content is hanging over your head, i.e. learning the halftime show in a short period of time, I think this is where bands that do a competitive show or one show a year have an advantage and have longer rehearsals, is that they can build in a regular and consistent amount of marching fundamental technique work as well. We have less time to do that, and yet we still prioritize that, where the full band will move in a block, where the full band will work on turning fundamentals and whatever is unique to the show. So that's really important. So the start of our rehearsal kind of looks like that. I think that's universal for all of us. Now we're teaching the agenda. We've skipped over the warm-up. We've talked about the beginning of the rehearsal. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about tricks of the trade for effectively teaching the marching band rehearsal. Okay? I want to talk to John about the tapper. It's one of my things.
Yeah.
I remember being in drum corps and being in band and not having anybody really physically explain it, but we always knew how to start because there was something pre-designed in. It was either somebody on a metronome or a center snare or a top bass, but the tapper is that person who starts the ensemble in time. For example, in the concert band, when we start, we should go like this. That's what we should do. We shouldn't go 1, 2, ready, and go. Even though we do. We verbally start things a lot. But in an intimate setting, where you're in a room that's engineered for sound, you should be able to start the sound like that. If you're on a scaffolding 30 feet away and you have 20 tubas behind the back hash, and you go. It's gonna. So here's all sarcasm aside, these are the differences. Conceptually, I think I wish it could be more like what we're trained to do. But now we need to learn the techniques of doing this outside. So in comes the tapper. Talk about the tapper.
Well, yeah, the tapper is, for us, it's a center snare drum, and because the snare drum is the shortest sound and the most precise sound, that's the person usually who does it, because everybody's listening to that sound in the drum line.
Right.
It's for us and for most groups, I assume, out
Yeah,
there, it's
center
the,
snare.
it's the center snare drummer.
And not only is the tapper it's starting every exercise you do, it's just a
Yeah.
drum line, but when we put the full ensemble together, the tapper is the person who starts everything we do in the big setting. I've observed this a lot in high-level competition bands where there is a dedicated metronome person.
Yeah.
Somebody who's carrying Dr. Beat and the Megavox or the Long Ranger, and is behind the group, is behind the source of rhythm, maybe behind the drum line, and has it all dialed in and is keeping the pulse so the band can rehearse with the metronome. That's very important. Everybody doesn't have that luxury. Maybe the director controls the metronome, etc. But maybe it would be the metronome being the tapper. And so the ensemble hears a series of 8 clicks or something. And the group is trained, as soon as you start hearing those clicks, it's like you lock in, and then off you go. Letter A to B, forward march 16 or slide 16 or whatever it is.
And we do that a lot on our own rehearsals. Usually we have a tapper who does it, and we have whistles or
Right.
whatever, you start it
Yeah.
or whatever. We do a metronome, and for us, I think it's important, I'll just say this quickly, is that we kind of wean ourselves off the metronome. Some people use it all the time. I think it's important to develop the performance you're not going to use the metronome during the performance. So we will use it, especially to start it when we're learning something. It helps
Right.
hold the group together. It helps establish time. But we take it away kind of gradually as the week goes on. Sometimes we'll even go from where it's providing more subdivision, maybe all 4 notes, to where we put it so it just does 1 beat on the beginning of each measure. Things
Right.
like that, where you kind of gradually take it away and you can still stay in that moment and
Right.
in that time.
Yep, developing internal pulse.
Yeah, exactly.
The physical example of how we use the tapper, since I would run the rehearsal and I have the microphone and I'm speaking through the sound system. Everybody hears my voice. I still feel charged with the pacing of the rehearsal as my responsibility. And again, we pretty much can't go fast enough. I don't think I ever walk away from any rehearsal and go, man, we got everything done today. We can take tomorrow off. Never. That never happens. So we probably rehearse fast to a fault. I'm sure there are things we leave. There's clutter that we leave, and that we trust the system and the leaders to kind of gather it up and make it right tomorrow. But we go fast. And so this is what we hear. John, you're going to be the tapper, and I'm going to do what I do. Okay? So the group's in a set. I go, all right, here we go. We're going from 3 to 4. This is letter A. Everybody set. Here we go. 1 and 2. Now, if I said 1 and 2 of the PA, 1, 2, ready, go, there's the time delay. This is a giant band on a football field where there are just as many people across the back of the field, on the back hash, and you ultimately will experience a giant flam if you try to control the pulse with your voice through the PA system. So you have to just set the pulse in motion and let the tapper from the center of the field or wherever the drum line is lock everybody in, and then be willing to remove yourself, because up on the tower it sounds like a flam, but you let it go. This is the other thing directors shouldn't do, that I'm sure I do sometimes, is count out loud over the PA, like when you're learning drill. 32 counts, here we go, from chart 3 to 4. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the kids are like, stop counting, because it's your pulse is fading farther away from the source, because somebody would be tapping or the drum line would be playing. And so I guess if the folks out there don't already use that, I'm hoping you'll throw that one in.